Well, Dean Acheson was a brilliant man. His interests really were concentrated in the North Atlantic in terms of his own strong sense of personal commitment. After all, he had played a large role in the building of the Marshall Plan and the construction of NATO, and from a geopolitical point of view, one can understand why this North Atlantic relationship was looked upon as fundamental. He had less interest in the little yellow, brown, black people in various parts of the earth. Dean Acheson's press club speech was very important, not so much for what it exactly said, but how it was interpreted. Well, he described our defense perimeter in the Pacific, and he left Korea out of that perimeter. His speech was widely interpreted as writing off Korea.
He was angry, and he shook that finger at me, and he said, "Where is the weapons that your Congress has authorized for me?" And of course, I had explained to him all about lead times and so forth. But he said, "I'll never forgive you Americans," as he shook his finger in my face.
Nobody thought Reed was a Democrat. We used to call him a rather inefficient dictator, rather inefficient totalitarian. And everybody knew this. We knew about some of the atrocities. And I suppose what it came down to, and quite properly, in my view, was that he was a much less vicious son of a bitch than the people in the North. And besides, he was our son of a bitch.
Mr. William Bradford Huey and Mr. Elliot Haines. Our distinguished guest for this evening is Dr. Y.T. Pyun, Foreign Minister of the Republic of Korea.
Now, first of all, sir, it's been suggested that Japanese troops might be used in South Korea. Now, what would be the reaction in your country if Japanese troops came there?
Well, we might be forced to fight Japanese first instead of fighting the communists.
You would be so opposed to the Japanese coming there that you might actually open fire on them.
Well, probably, yes.
Well, now, why does this animosity exist between your country and the Japanese, sir?
Well, I may give you a few reasons. First is that the communists in my country will strut, like patriots, real patriots, fighting the Southern Koreans who have Japanese, our former enemy, as allies.
Well, Mr. Pyun, do you feel that the Japanese would like to take your country over, to sort of invade it again, as it were?
Well, we very much fear that.
You do fear that?
Yeah, and I may go on with giving you more reasons why we are against the idea of bringing Japanese into Korea. The second reason is that will greatly lower the fighting morale of the ROK forces.
If the Japanese came in, your men who are now fighting so gallantly would not want to continue fighting in the same manner.
They will always feel the humiliation of having allies as their, the former enemy.
And
in killing our own brethren in North.
Is there a... yes. Well, Mr. Pyun, if you don't want Japanese troops in Korea and you don't want Chinese troops in Korea, that means that you have to fall back on your own Korean troops to bolster the United Nations battle line. How many troops do you think you might recruit for that purpose?
You mean to expand?
Yes, expand ROK military force?
You know, I don't know the exact number of the Korean troops because that is supposed to be the military secret. But I imagine there may be over 400,000 of Korean troops, and that number can be doubled in near future. And we have more manpower than that, than for that expansion. But the question is, well, how can we Koreans, with this their disrupted economy, support them in feeding and so on?
The problem is then not the number of men which you can furnish, but how to support them and equip them and keep their families alive at home. Is the economic state of Korea a bad one right now?
Oh, it's beyond description.
Is there great suffering? Great suffering among your people?
Now, in cities, you never notice such, you know, but in outlying countries, people simply vanish by thousands because of lack of food,
starvation,
and so on. And young men are going to the front for fighting, leave their families, feeding on tree barks and grass, and of course their fighting morale can be very high.
Well, Mr. Pyong, it's been several years, or over a year now, that the United Nations has supposedly been helping Korea to reconstruct its economy and rehabilitate its economic life. Apparently they haven't helped very much. Is that right?
Well, I don't think so. Indeed, much has been done. But, you know, there are many bottlenecks, you know, because war is still going on. And I may tell you very briefly how things stand where they are now. You know, 15 billions have gone into destructive war that has been limited to my small country for the last 13 months. And only $300 million have gone for rehabilitation and relief.
Well,
and the greatest bottleneck lies in transportation.
In shipping, yes.
Shipping. So,
well, Mr. Pyong, I'm sorry, sir. Our time is up. But I'm sure that our viewers have appreciated these expressions of yours tonight, and thank you for being with us.
well, it's I that should thank you.
The opinions you've heard our speakers express tonight are entirely their own. The editorial board for this edition of the Longines Chronoscope was Mr. William Bradford Huey and Mr. Elliot Hames. Our distinguished guest was Dr. Y.T. Pyong, Foreign Minister of the Republic of Korea.
Challenging entertainment, Omnibus on the CBS television network.
We were disarmed. NSC 68 represented a major decision by the United States to begin to build up its armed forces again. And I think the Korean attack and the Korean War simply confirmed what was already being discussed as a necessity if we were to maintain some peace in the world.
Come on, Harvard. You go to Harvard?
Hi, Mr. Trump.
How are
Thank
you?
so much for. Oh, sorry. Thank you so much for coming to speak to us today. I just have a really quick question about something you said earlier this summer about. Basically, you said that South Korea takes advantage of the United States in terms of the defense spending on the Korean
Sure.
Peninsula.
Right.
You said
True.
they don't pay anything. However, I just want to get the facts straight and say
Are
that
you
that's-
from South Korea?
I'm not. I was born in Texas, raised in Colorado. But I just want to say, that, no matter where I'm from, I just like to get my facts straight. And I want to tell you that that's not true. South Korea paid $861 million.
Which is peanuts compared to what it's costing us.
Yeah, but the United States also has geopolitical.
Excuse me. It's peanuts compared to what it's costing. It's peanuts. And by the way, they are a very wealthy country. Part of the problem when we talk about, like your question about...
I keep asking, how long will we go on defending South Korea from North Korea without payment? South Korea is a very, very rich country. They're rich because of us. They sell us televisions, they sell us cars, they sell us everything. They are making a fortune. We have a huge deficit with South Korea. We're doing it for nothing. We're not in that position. When will they start to pay us for this defense? Isn't it really ridiculous when you think of it? They make a fortune in the United States, and then they've got some problems, and what happens? They call the United States to defend them, and we get nothing?
Well, we looked at the map and thought that it would be a good idea if Seoul, the capital of Korea, were in our zone of occupation. But we knew that the Army would not want us to go very far beyond that, and so we looked north of Korea, and there was no clearly distinguishing geographic feature, but there was the 38th parallel. And so we came back and suggested that. What none of us there at that meeting from the State Department or the Army knew was that earlier in the century there had been discussions between the Russians and the Japanese about a division of a sphere of influence in Korea along the 38th parallel. Had we known that, we'd have selected any other dividing line. Actually, they accepted the 38th parallel with alacrity. He had less interest in the little yellow-brown, black people in various parts of the earth.
And besides, he was our son of a bitch.
He was angry, and he shook that finger at me, and he said, "Where is the weapons that your Congress has authorized for me?" And of course, I had explained to him all about lead times and so forth. But he said, "I'll never forgive you Americans." And as he shook his finger in my face,